Hey there everyone, and welcome to a new video. So, it's been quite a while since I've managed to create anything for the channel, and I will be doing a quick channel update video shortly, but in case you don't have a chance to see that, about 4 months ago now, I think it's nearly 4 months, I was diagnosed with a brain tumour, so that was not really something you expect to hear from the doctor at my age, or I suppose at any age really, but I'm only 27, so I suppose that, don't really expect to hear that when you're only 27. So that's been pretty intense, dealing with all of that, a lot of treatment and all that kind of stuff. So treatment well and truly isn't over yet, but I'm sort of getting back to a point where I feel like I can do a little bit more energy and things like that. So I'm going to start the channel up again, start producing a bit more content, and get the channel up and running again. So I do apologise if anyone's commented or sort of series that you were watching just stopped mid-series. I do apologise. I'll try and get back to some of those a little bit later on, but we'll see how we go. So anyway, today we're going to check out a new game. So it's called Command Ops 2. It is a World War II operational game. It is an absolutely unique and amazing game, and it's pretty unknown actually. It's pretty obscure, I think. So sort of one of those games I'd really love to sort of get a lot more people interested in. So I can imagine it's not going to be for everybody. It is sort of top-down 2D. It's not hex-based. It's all real-time pausable. But it's I can imagine some people maybe find it a little bit boring or something. But I think anyone interested in the era will find it absolutely amazing. So some of the features and the way the game operates is very, very impressive. So just to give you a bit of an insight of how actually sort of well regarded this engine is. So heavily, a modified version of this engine is actually used by the Australian Defence Force and also the US Army Command College. So that sort of gives you a bit of an insight how impressive the engine actually is if it's used by real life militaries in actual training. And I know I've sort of had a bit of a quick look earlier. It's been showcased at a whole bunch of things like NATO showcases and all this kind of stuff, so it's very, very impressive. Anyway, so what we're going to do today, you can actually download this game, download the engine, so the Command Ops 2 engine, and also 3 scenarios here. So these 3 scenarios you can see here, you actually do that for completely free. So it's basically like a demo. And then what happens from there is you actually purchase and download modules. So they're basically scenario packs, and they cover different time periods or different theatres of the war and all that kind of stuff. So I've got 5 installed at the moment, and then there's another 2 that I haven't gotten yet. So that sort of shows you how much content there really is, which is a huge amount of content in the game. So what we're going to do today is actually run through the first scenario in the Bastogne scenario, or the module. So this is the race for Bastogne. It starts on the 16th of December 1944 at 5:30 AM. It's 5 days and 13 hours in duration and 413 units in total. So it is one of the larger scenarios, or the second largest in this module. It's probably not one I'd recommend newbies to the game actually sort of jump into. You're probably better off to jump into something a little bit smaller, but I did actually play through this scenario a couple of days ago, just sort of the first day in game, and actually really enjoyed it. So we'll run through this and see how we go. So I'm not going to run through any of the briefing stuff down there at the moment. We'll run through that a little bit later. We will be playing as the Axis, so we'll be attacking the Allies. Playing as the 47th Panzer Corps. I think that's 47, isn't it? I think it's L50. So if it's 50, it should be 47. Anyway, 47th Panzer Corps HQ. I'm not going to run through any of these options or these scenario options here. They're all explained in the manual. Just suffice to say that these are all default. So there's no buffs or debuffs for either side. It's all stock standard. And we'll jump into it. So, as I mentioned, it's not going to be for everybody, but you'll probably see why in a minute. It is a very complex game. It does take quite a bit of time to get used to, but it is pretty incredible, as I mentioned. So this is the game. As I mentioned, graphics aren't anything special. That's all top-down 2D. Amazingly hand-drawn maps, though. And there's a tool that actually overlaid these maps on Google Earth, and it is incredible the amount of detail or accuracy that these maps actually have. It is pretty amazing. So anyway, here we go. So we're the grey, obviously, the Germans. On this side here, there's 158 units on map at the moment. I'd actually sort of start recording a version of this episode a little bit earlier and sort of end up spending 20 minutes explaining all the concepts in the game, which I don't really want to do. I want to jump into it and we'll sort of explain stuff as we go. So only thing I'm going to mention at the start with this is the way that all orders are actually given. So a big aspect of the game is the fact that you don't actually micromanage every unit, and you actually leave a lot of the orders actually carrying out of the actual orders to your subordinates, to the AI. And there is a very impressive sort of AI model of how they actually sort of give orders and carry out your orders and all that kind of stuff. So it is really, really quite cool. So, for example here, this is the on-map boss, this is us, this is the 47th Panzer Corps HQ, see up here on the top left. This is us for all intents and purposes in this scenario, and actually, if you look into under the commands tab here, you actually see that we actually have a command capacity of 34, so we can command around about 34 units. It's a little bit abstracted, it's not sort of 34 exact units, but yeah, so it can show you that, excuse me, given there's 158 units on map and we can only command around about 34, can shows you that you sort of really need to delegate a lot of the time and give your let your subordinates actually carry out your orders, which is the way that it happens in a real life army, I imagine. So another big concept of the game is orders delay. So basically what happens is that orders aren't carried out immediately, so the game simulates the fact that it takes time for orders to actually filter down the chain of command, and then for those orders to actually be processed by the HQ, the relevant HQ, and then distributed to their sub-units. So for example here, if we click on this unit here, this is the 2nd Battalion of the 77th Grenadier Regiment. So this little blue line here, as you can see on the map, this indicates the superior unit or the commanding unit, so this is the 77th Grenadier Regiment HQ here, which is under the command of the 26th Volksgrenadier Division, which in turn is under the command of the 47th Panzer Corps. So we come back to the 2nd Battalion here. Actually see these little green lines coming out. These indicates its subunits. So this is a battalion, so it has a bunch of combat units and support units under it. Has 618 men in total, which is this little figure here. It's got 3 infantry companies, a medium mortar platoon, and a I think it's an infantry gun or a light gun. I think it's an infantry gun. Infantry gun platoon under it as well. It's basically what happens. So for example, we can actually, a lot of the time you actually be issuing orders at the battalion level. So you can actually issue orders, for example, to the entirety of the 26th Volksgrenadier Division, or 6,673 men. A lot of the time you don't really want to do that because it's not quite fine enough control. On some of the really massive scenarios you sort of will have to operate at that level, but a lot of the time a battalion level is the perfect level to be issuing orders at. So for example, as we mentioned, currently the 2nd Battalion's superior unit is the 77th Grenadier Regiment. So if we actually give the 2nd Battalion an order directly, the superior unit actually changes from the 77th Grenadier Regiment to the on-map boss, which is the 47th Panzer Corps. So that means we're issuing the orders to the 2nd Battalion directly. And in this situation, if we give the 2nd Battalion an order, it's actually going to take time for that order to get from our HQ, the 47th Panzer Corps, to the 2nd Battalion, and it's going to take them time to then process that order and come up with their own plans, and then they actually have to distribute individual orders to all of their sub-units, and that takes time. So sort of the big focus of the game is the fact that you can't sort of impact things immediately. It does take a bit of time, depending on the time it takes is depending on a whole range of factors, like the level that you're actually issuing orders at. It's going to take a division a hell of a lot longer to mobilize the entirety of the division that is, for a battalion, for example. The level of the commanders, how good they are, how bad they are, weather, distance, if they're in combat or not, all that kind of stuff actually comes into, orders delay. So sort of the game is really quite unique in that respect, is that you're giving orders to your subordinates at different levels, and you're relying on them to actually carry them out. And as in real life, sometimes they're just not going to be able to do it. Sometimes you've got bad commanders who don't carry out your orders properly, they make bad decisions. Or you get really good commanders who, the ones that you can rely on to get the job done when you need to. So it is sort of really realistic in that respect, and it's really quite unique. Is that you sort of have to take a bigger picture overview, about the actual entire battle. Anyway, enough of that. Been talking about 9 minutes already. So we'll jump into the briefing really quickly. If you want to read this historical briefing here, this bottom bit, pause the video now. Otherwise, I'll just sort of skip through it. So. Alrighty, there we go. So, Axis briefing. Commander, our reinforced patrols have crossed the Our River. So, if we just switch this down, this is actually the Our River. You see that little bit there? So, this is the river that runs right down from top to bottom through the map. The patrols have crossed the Our River and moving swiftly towards the American positions along the ridge. You are ordered to bypass enemy strongpoints and capture the crossing over the Clerf River, which is this river here. So, it's the other river that runs from north to south through the middle of the map. We also get the bridges built at Dasburg and Unter something, which I can't pronounce, so we're just going to call it Unterbridge. Constructed as swiftly as possible so that our armoured formations can push onto Bastogne and strike for the Muse. Use all available engineers towards accomplishing this task. You can combine multiple engineer units under a single bridge construction order, as long as one of the engineers has a bridge pontoon icon. We expect initial resistance to be light, but the allies may have strong reserves and respond to our attack sooner than we think. Cool, right, so it's given us a whole bunch of information there. If we jump into our objectives here, we've got a whole bunch of objectives that we need to meet over the course of the scenario. So the first one here, so basically you win or lose scenarios by gaining objective points, and you gain objective points through a couple of different ways. So for example, this one here is just a destroy the enemy. So basically the more enemy that we kill, the more points that we get, which is really simple. For example here, if we jump actually to this one here, so the Clairvaux Bridge, this is the objective here. This is a total of 8 points, but it's split up between occupation and completion. So occupation means that you get sort of a ticking score of up to 5 points over the time period the objective is active. So from day 1 at 5:30 AM to day 3 at 6 PM. So given that it's 5:30 AM now and we're still a fair way away from that, we're not going to be able to get a full 5 points occupation. Which makes quite important the completion here. So basically completion is that at this point that the objective ends, so day 3 at 6 PM, if we hold this objective at that point, we get a full 2.5 points. But if we don't hold that objective, so for example, if we don't hold that objective at 1800, but we do at 1801, we get nothing. We get no points. So it's really, really important for completion objectives to hold that objective at the time that the objective ends. And then the last type of objective that we've got is actually exit objectives. You actually see all these little sort of yellow icons on the edges of the map. This basically means that we have to exit our units off the map, and this is done to represent the fact that this is just one part of like a larger theatre, a larger battle. So we actually our units actually have elsewhere to go. They need to get on and continue the battle and all that kind of stuff. So we actually have to exit a certain proportion of our force actually off the map by the end of the scenario, and that's a full 25 points there. Bastogne is a 20 points match, just a completion one, so we just need to make sure that at the end of the scenario we hold Bastogne for a full 20 points. A couple of smaller villages here which have occupation and completion, and then a bunch of minor sort of 8 and 5.1s through here. So you actually see all of these, all these objectives through here. So we have to make sure that we meet as many of these as possible. So that's enough for me. So what we're going to do now is have a quick look at our reinforcements. So we get a whole bunch of reinforcements. So we get 6 units on day 1 between 12 PM and 2 PM. And day 1 between 1 PM and 2 PM we get another 25 units, 3,000 men. Day 1 between 2 and 4 we get another 10. Day 1 another 19, and then day 4 we get some paratroop units there. They're down on the edge of the map here, whereas most of our other units are sort of over here, but behind our lines. So anyway, so that's fine. We're not going to worry about too much about those. They're not going to impact our battle. We'll sort of fit them in as we go. So if we're looking at here, what are we going to do? Our first two objectives we've got, as we mentioned, we have to get the bridges built at the Dasberg and the Uber. She says Uber there. It says the other one's in Unter, didn't it? So we just call this one the Uber crossing. So currently, we actually can't cross this bridge without armoured formation. So obviously, armoured tanks can't cross big rivers. This is it says a minor river, but it is a river, and you can't cross a river. So infantry can quite slowly, but that's sort of reflective of the fact that infantry units carry maybe like inflatable boats or things like that. They can actually get across, whereas tanks need bridges. So currently, this is just a crossing point. It's just called a crossing point. So actually not like a built bridge or anything like that, or even a ferry or anything like that. It's just sort of a point where something could exist there. So currently there are no bridges across this river, which is why only our infantry are across and all of our armoured units are still stuck on the other side. So what we're going to do now is build a bridge at a couple of points here. So I can see this one here has a bridge pontoon one, and if you're not sure, just jump into the equipment and supply tab here. It's got bridge building capacity there, so we can see there that builds a bridge. So I'm just going to select both of those. And then we're just going to click on construct a bridge here, and we'll get that done. I'm not going to modify any of these parameters here, these orders. We'll get into that a little bit later. We're going to do exactly the same thing up here. Select both of these engineer units, and we're going to build a bridge across here. So I know from memory, I think it takes around 10 hours to build a light road bridge. So we'll see how that goes. And Yeah, so there we go. So that's our first two objectives done. So once those are finished, we will get some points for those. So we get 15 points each for both those crossings. And that has to be done by day 2 at 8:30 AM. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. So, given the fact that our armoured and mechanised motorised forces are stuck on the west or the east bank of the Our River, we can only play with our infantry units at the moment. So, we've got a whole bunch of battalions up here, infantry battalions. So we look at our objectives here. We've got an objective here at Hosingen, which we're going to try and take. There's another one down here at Constham, and then one here at Usbelt. And so those are sort of the 3 town objectives we've got on here. And then we're coming down here to a couple of objectives, bridge objectives over the river. So we need to capture these objectives here, because these are heavy road bridges. So if you click on that one, you see it's a heavy road bridge. So it means our units can get across there really fast. So that's our sort of our big objective, because we need to capture those bridges to actually get our armoured forces across. And then we can actually push on to Bastogne there, because Bastogne, once we sort of get across the Clerf River, which is this one here, it is sort of fairly open. So once we sort of get through some of this forested area here, we can actually get onto the highway and actually move our units really quite quickly. So our big focus at the moment is going to be pushing through down to the Clerf River, clearing out the enemy from there. So, what are we going to do? So, we're going to jump in, and this is the 1st Battalion HQ, which is a bicycle unit of the 39 Fusilier Regiment. So, we're going to issue orders to all of these battalions individually and take them under our control. So, what are we going to do? So, we can see there's potentially a unit here sitting in the village. I'm actually going to just issue a very simple attack order here. So, normally I use sort of hotkeys, but just for this first episode, I will use, just click on the order so you can actually see what I'm doing. So you come up here to the Orders tab, and we're going to click on the Attack Order here. I'm actually going to shift click and set down 2 points. What this does is actually, you actually see this little icon here, this sort of broken icon, if you can see that little one there. That's a forming up point, or an FUP point. So basically what that means is the battalion's going to actually get ready to actually attack at this point. They're going to reorganize, get ready, get into their formations, all that kind of stuff, and then they're actually going to attack in their formation, in their attack formation, from there to the objective. So you don't want to have these forming up points too far away from the objective, because it means that your units can get tired out really quickly. And yeah, anyway, so we're going to leave this as a sort of a fairly stock standard attack mission. I'm actually going to put just the rest onto none for the moment, just because I don't want them to rest at all. I know they're not going to anyway, really, but it's just sort of just a bit of a safety thing I like to do, just for some of these ones that I really want to get done. I'm going to leave everything as default. I'm going to leave the formation and all the sort of other settings just as default, and I'm going to leave. And that means that the 1st Battalion HQ here we're giving that. Basically, it means that we're giving that HQ unit discretion to actually set its own parameters, or do what it seems. Do what it thinks is the best. So use the formation that it thinks is the best, use the route it thinks is the best, and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to leave it to do its own thing, and we're going to see what choices it actually makes and why, and all that kind of stuff. So if you hear this one here, it's basically sort of a bigger overview. We're going to use these 2 battalions down here at the bottom to actually push down towards the Constham objective. So we've got this one here, and we're going to clear out this village. Once that's done, we're actually going to push this one up through, and then we're going to attack down into there. But for this battalion here, which is currently sitting in the woods, we're just going to push, move them to the edge of this forest, and then we're actually get them to attack across the highway, and then clear out this edge of the forest here. Once that's done, we'll be able to have a 2 battalion attack straight down into the village, which will be brilliant. So what we're going to do the same thing. Oops, there we go. So click on the attack order, do a shift click here, because we want them to form up at the edge of the forest. We're just going to put an attack order just down here, sort of on the edge of the forest down here. As you see this sort of box here, this is sort of the limit. So this is sort of how big you want the battalion to actually spread out into. So you can sort of change all this stuff if you want here. So you see, if you want like a bigger footprint, or more spaced out units and all that kind of stuff, you can sort of set it all there. I'm just going to leave it as auto, let them set their own formations and stuff there. Put the rest onto none again, and everything else is just going to be default. We'll see what the AI decides to do there. With this one here, these 2 battalions here are actually going to attack towards the objective of Hosingen and actually clear out the town there, so we can get that objective nice and quick. So this is going to be our main attack. This is going to be the 2nd Battalion here. Is going to be the main force that actually comes into the village, or the town, whatever you want to call it. Whereas the 1st Battalion is actually sort of going to sort of swing around the outside, clear off any edge, or any forces on the edge of town here, and actually clear out the woods behind as well. So we're actually going to move this one here. If we click on the attack order here, we're going to set up a forming up point just here at the bottom of the incline or the ridge here. And then we're going to get them to actually attack up here. So if you actually see here, probably there is a good point. So if you actually sort of follow this box down, imagine this is coming around, shows that these units are actually going to sort of clip the edge of town here. So just going to give a little bit of extra support to this attacking, the second battalion actually attacking into the town. I'm going to leave all the settings as default again and just leave it on none for the rest. Whereas for this one here, we're going to do an attack objective. Click here, and oops, another one, and straight, just right in the middle of town. We're actually going to set a few different parameters here. So we've got a forming up point here. I'm actually going to move that back a little bit. There we go. Just because I don't want to get them to get too close to town, actually get under fire before they actually get ready and get set. So you're going to put rest on to none. But for this one, you actually see here, so these are sort of terrain, these sort of different colors are terrain markers. So if you don't know how to read terrain maps, it's fairly simple really. Basically, in this example, the darker the color, the higher the terrain. So for example, if we right click on this is like a terrain pop-up, gives you some stats around the terrain. So these X, Y, and Z are the locations or the coordinates, and the Z number is the height above sea level. So currently you can see here, this is 500 meters above sea level. So we click down onto a lighter color down here. So for example, in the forest, this Z number, the Z coordinate, is actually 440, so that's 440 meters above sea level. So from here, at the top of the ridge, down here, it's actually 60 meters difference, which is quite a lot. So as you see, this actually formation is actually going to be tacking up the hill into the ridge. So if you pull out a little bit further, you actually see this highway actually runs along the ridge. You see this ridge actually runs all the way along here. So that's sort of why we're actually going to be tacking up into there. So what we're going to do, given that we know it's going to be open ground, there's going to be likely some units in this objective in this town here. Given that we know that, given we know they're going to be attacking uphill across open ground, there's no protection here. This is all just open, which means that they're really exposed. We're actually going to set some different parameters. So what we're going to do, we're going to set the speed to fastest. Basically, we want them to get across the open ground into the town as quickly as possible. We want to get in there into some protection as quickly as possible. We're going to set the aggro here. So if you set the aggro to max, basically it means that we want to be as aggressive as possible and to engage any units that we come across in the town as quickly as possible. We're going to have rate of fire, so the RF button here into max. Basically, we want to pour as much fire on them as much fire on them as we can. So suppressing, which will hopefully suppress them and move them out of town as more quickly as possible. You want to be careful using the rate of fire and maximum though, because it will use up your supplies very quickly. But I'm not actually too worried about that for this example, just because I know that we're going to have our armor units and stuff end up pushing past these infantry units. So I'm really sort of just important to get. Basically, I just want to get this the west bank of the Our River cleared, so that when we do get our bridges built, we can actually get our armored units across. And get them moving really quickly without being held up or delayed by any sort of allied units. So that's what we're going to do there. So we can get them to attack, be very aggressive, lots of fire, lots of suppressing fire into the town there, and get them across the open ground into the town as quickly as possible. And alrighty, so a little bit of a sort of a problem or a little bit of a different situation up here, and we only have one battalion. So this is the 2nd Battalion motorised with the 304th Panzer Grenadier Regiment. Only got 3 combat companies, infantry companies in it. Doesn't have any support units. So for example, this one here, the 1st Battalion, you see it's got 3 infantry companies with it, but it's also got the light gun, the infantry gun, and it's also got the medium mortar platoon. So it's actually got some artillery support attached to it directly, which means that this HQ, like if these units get into a bit of trouble or they get sort of bogged down, this HQ can actually call on these support units to actually give their units some artillery fire. So it's a very, very good thing for the battalion to have. This battalion doesn't have that, so it's quite a bit of a smaller battalion. So given that we've only got one battalion to actually sort of take on one objective, we've got these couple of infantry companies sitting here. These are actually attached directly to the 2nd Panzer Division over here. So it's actually got a couple of infantry companies attached to it directly. We don't really need that. It's no use for us to actually be attached directly to the 2nd Panzer Division. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the HQ here. So you're just going to control click both of these ones. Now if we give an order, so we're going to put an attack order in here. We're actually going to put an attack order. I think what we're going to do is we're going to clear. We're actually going to move across here, use the woods as cover. Then we're going to attack up, clear this village of Cocheret. clear that village there, and that, because then we're going to be sitting on the ridge, and that should actually give us a clear sight down into Earthspell. You can actually see we're actually a higher terrain level here than Earthspell is, so we should be able to look down and actually see what we're actually going to be attacking into, and then we can adjust our orders from there. So because we've got these units selected now, we're going to put our first point here in the forest, then our second one in the village of Koshare there. What this has actually done now, this is, as you see, these green lines are actually now attached to the 2nd Battalion HQ. So these two infantry companies are now under the command of the 2nd Battalion, so we actually changed that. They're no longer under the command of the 2nd Panzer Division, so that's just buffed up the 2nd Battalion there, giving them a little bit more oomph into their attack. So we're going to do the same thing actually here. We're actually going to do fastest, and we're going to do max aggressiveness and put rest on to none. Just going to leave rate of fire as it is at the moment, because we don't know what we're going to be up against down here. Down in the village of Earthspell, so we may need to conserve our supplies, and maybe we're going to be better off using a high rate of fire once we're actually attacking down into the village there. So that's what we're going to do there. So that's about all of our initial orders set up. Oh, God, 23 minutes in the episode already. Apologies guys if you found this really boring. I just thought it's really useful I'll explain all this stuff in depth, like sort of as I've done now, and then I'll that means that I can sort of run through stuff a little bit more quickly later on. I won't have to explain everything. So that's all of our initial orders for all of these infantry companies or the infantry battalions set up. So they should be able to clear off the ridge here, and then we'll start pushing towards the Clerf River while our bridges are being built. Next thing we're going to do is get some artillery support under our direct control. So we come down here into this FS, the fire support tab. Currently see there's no actual fire support that we actually directly control. It's all attached to divisions or battalions or anything, all that kind of stuff. And like that's quite good because they'll set up their own fire missions. They'll do it automatically based on the battalions, the combat in their area, or what units they can see and all that kind of stuff. But we do want some artillery under our direct control, so we can actually deploy it where it needs to be, especially for this early battle because these units are actually quite isolated. So we've got 4 artillery units here. These are all heavy mortar batteries or heavy artillery batteries. So we actually turn on another feature here, down here, is range rings. So, really quick little example here. The different colours represent different things. So the green represents anti-personnel, the red represents anti-armour, and the blue represents bombard value, so artillery basically. So, for example here, these are artillery units. You actually see this blue ring is actually how far these artillery units can actually fire. Anything past these, the artillery won't actually be able to reach. So these are actually static units as well, which means they can't move for the scenario. So you just think of these as really big, massive guns that can't be moved. So actually, what we can do, we actually set up rest orders for these. So just this little button here, this backslash. I'm just going to use the keyboard shortcuts for these. There we go, and set up a rest order for this one, and this one, and this one. And what this does, actually, by issuing these ones direct orders, if we click on the fire support tab again, you see these 4 units are now under our direct fire support control. So we can actually issue artillery support missions or fire support missions directly without having to go through any sort of other level of command. So we're going to do that. So it's really good. It is really quite a good thing to have from an on-map boss. We're going to do the same thing for this one. Sorry if I'm moving the mouse around a bit, guys. It's sort of flickering a little bit. I think it's the recording software. And we'll do the same with these ones. So generally I take the big long-range guns under my control and leave the medium ones under the control of the divisions, regiments, or battalions. And that one as well. So it's going to be quite a few artillery units we have under our control, but it is really quite useful at this early point in the game. So this is sort of a medium one. So this is a heavy mortar platoon, but it does have a less range. So I'm just going to leave this attached to a regiment here. I'm sort of only interested in the longer range guns, that was one of them there. What about these ones? They're sort of medium range, we'll leave those. That's a longer range gun. I think that should be enough for now. If we jump into the fire support, this is probably, a dozen artillery units that we can actually call on for support now, which is brilliant. That is really good. Cool. Alrighty, so we're pretty much ready to get going. I think that's everything I need to explain for the moment. Just going to run into these range rings really quickly, just to give you a bit of an example. Where's a better one? Where's some tanks that may be a better... Actually, we'll just run into this. Alright, so, as I mentioned, green is anti-personnel. So given this is an infantry company, So the three different ranges, the three different rings basically represent the outer ring, or the light ring, is the maximum range of the weapons under these controls. So if you jump into the equipment and supply tab, the game actually models every piece of equipment and every piece of ammunition and fuel and all that kind of stuff. So, for example, if we look for this infantry company, it's got 8,171 rounds of 7.92mm ammunition. So that is, and it actually models, you actually see is decreased by like individual single digits once they get into combat. So, and then all the different types of ammunition here, and all the different types of weapons and stuff as well. So the rifles, the Kar 98 rifle, the MP40s, the MG42s, the Panzerfaust, the anti-tank guns, all that kind of stuff. So the outer ring here, the light green ring, is the maximum range of some of these weapons. I'm guessing it's probably going to be the MG42. So if you click on these and actually jump into performance, it's got maximum range at 700 meters here. There's actually two other range things you can see here. You've got effective range, the EFF range, and then the minimum range. And that's what these other ones sort of represent, well, almost. So this outer ring is maximum range. This inner ring, this darker ring, is actually effective range. So basically it's when the weapons are most effective. So yes, some of these weapons will be able to be fired, out in this distance, but like a lot of them, I suppose, like maybe the rifles and stuff, aren't really going to be very effective at this range. It's going to be very difficult to hit anything and all that kind of stuff. So this sort of inner ring represents when the range at which most, the weapons of this company are most effective, at an overall picture. So some of them are going to be effective at different range. This is sort of an overall picture. This inner sort of, not really sure if you can see this really dark one, the dark green one on the edge of these here, this is the ambush range. So if you start ambush missions, this is the range at which ambushes will be conducted, or the weapons will be used in an ambush mission. The red rings here, so the red rings, there's three of them, which is the same as the, so it's going to be maximum, effective, and then ambush. You actually see here, these, as I mentioned, the red ones are anti-armor, so obviously anti-tank guns and things like that. So for example, in this infantry company, it's going to be the Panzerfaust, which is these, so the disposable RPG. So for example, given that that's all it's only got the Panzerfaust, which is really short range. You actually see it's got a really short range of anti-armor. Anything outside of that, any tank sitting outside of that. So for example, if there was a tank unit sitting here on the map, for example, this infantry company wouldn't be able to hit it because it's got no weapons which actually do any damage to it. So a tank platoon could sit here and actually just spray the infantry company with fire, and they couldn't do anything about it. So they've only a really short range. But if you jump over to something like a tank unit over here, this is a tank. So this is the second company of the 3rd Panzer Regiment. It's got Panthers, so in brackets it's got Panthers, so Panther tanks there. You actually see here, it's actually got its range rings out here. So this is anti-armor out here, is really quite, a lot bigger out. It's got a far bigger range, anti-armor range, than the infantry company does, which is obviously reasons because it's got the guns on the tanks. And then if you jump into things like, where's an infantry gun here? So the infantry gun's got a little bit more range on the anti-armor. And then, when you get anti-tank guns and all that kind of stuff. So that's really something useful to be aware of. And, how your units can actually fire. Because sometimes you're going to be units are going to be sitting there and you're going to be thinking, why aren't they firing? And if you click on them, you actually say, well, actually, they actually can't fire there because all that kind of stuff. Alrighty, 33 minutes and we've done nothing. So we'll actually get the game running. So I'm just going to use spacebar. You can pause and click down here. These are the time controls down in the bottom right. You've got day, these hopefully this pop-up shows. It's got, all the temperatures and weather conditions, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to turn the sound down, guys. Turn right down to the second last one. There we go. There we go. Alright, so we're going to get the game running. We're running it on normal speed, so sort of the medium level. You see the time ticking over here. Something important to mention about this mission here. If you look at the scenario settings here, it's got initial orders delay will gravitate from 0 to 100% during the first hour. So that means the orders delay, which I talked about earlier in the mission, doesn't actually exist for the first minute of the game, and then from there it will increase to the 100%, like the maximum, the normal range. So if we jump onto the command tab here, this unit delay, you see this increasing. So as the first hour ticks by, these figures here, these delay figures, are actually going to increase up to their normal range, what they should be. So that basically represents the fact that at the start of a mission, all the units are ready, they've already got their orders, and then they don't actually need any delay because they're already set and raring to go and all that kind of stuff. So that's what that is. In some missions, in some defensive missions, like I know some American Bastogne missions, they actually have orders delay like 700%, decreasing down to 100% over like a first 5 hours or something, which represents like a surprise factor, like a shock factor, which means that, you know, for the first, you know, 5 hours, as the as the commander, you're going to really struggle to get your units to do anything, just because they're, you know, they're shocked if they've been surprised, a little bit shell shocked, they don't know what to do, they're not reacting and all that kind of stuff, and then over time you reassert your control and things go back to normal. So that's what that sort of is. So you actually see here all of our units are moving forward. So for example, this one here is moving up to the format point. So this is probably the better point here because this is already ready. So it's actually set up, it's gotten organized at the format point, and now it's actually moving into attack into the village. Actually see that if you click on all these units here, the first battalion, this the HQ unit here, is actually given all its subunits actual orders on its own. It's actually set up those orders by itself, and these orders have actually their own individual parameters and all that kind of stuff based on their roles and what the HQ wants them to do. Yeah, so it's all sort of, you know, done and set up by the HQ. You can actually see here another really cool feature. You've got the 3 infantry companies moving forward. These are obviously like the assault force. You actually got the 2 support units. For example, the infantry gun here and the medium mortar platoon actually sit back, and these are in the reserve force. And these are obviously, they don't want them in frontline combat. The HQ unit wants them in, you know, as in a support role. And you see here, the infantry gun actually has a larger bombard range than the medium mortar platoon, which is why it's moved up the medium mortar platoon to make sure it's got a good range. So that's all been done based on just the order that we've given the battalion HQ there, and then, you know, that's all been sorted out by the battalion on its own. So that's sort of a really cool feature of the game, actually, that, you know, you actually, you know, like I mentioned, you just give orders at a certain level, and then you rely on your subordinates to carry those out. So you can see the color might have changed there. That's because we're actually getting into dawn now. You see down here in dawn, so it's at 7:05 AM. And yeah, so you can see this assault is coming into the village, or the attack is coming into the village. These units are coming in. Currently no fire anywhere on the map. I haven't heard any fire sounds. And you can see a bunch of our other battalions are getting ready and moving up and getting into their format points and all that kind of stuff. So this one here is all ready, and actually you see the attack is coming into the village now. 2 or 3 infantry companies here, and then a couple of support units. This one here is pretty much, or not quite ready to go, still at the format point. You see here the icon, still moving some of its units into a position, and once it's ready, it will then move up to into the attacks. This one's a little bit delayed, unfortunately. So actually, it's funny, in the last playthrough, I'm going to pause the game a bit. When I played through the last day, this battalion actually was a lot further ahead of this one. So that sort of shows you that things change all the time. It's based on a whole range of different things. So maybe we've actually put the point at a different, you know, put the format point at a different spot. Maybe these units are a little bit more fatigued or something like that. It's, you know, things change. It's all sort of very variable. And so this one here is taking quite a bit of time to actually get ready. It's actually haven't started even, it's not quite even moving out yet, which is a bit of a pain. You see it's moving, deployed, yep. So it's not actually, I see some fire sounds there. Yeah, so this one's actually was taking quite a bit longer, so it's probably just, you know, reorganizing its control and all that kind of stuff. So we actually got some combat happening now, and you heard those sounds, I'm assuming. So you actually see here, all these little unit icons, or these little counter markers mean a bunch of different things. I'll get into them as they come up. You see this little blue block of blue down here, which all these other units haven't actually got yet. So there's a couple of different colors here which mean different things. So the blue block of color there means that the unit is firing. Yellow means it's receiving fire. Red means it's taking casualties, and white means it's surrendering. Basically, it's retreating or routing. So if we probably get some yellow, probably some of these colors will change as we get into the fire. So you can actually see it's firing at this unit here, this infantry company sitting in the town. So it's still firing. There we go. So it's red. It's actually taking some casualties. If we jump up here to the general tab, actually see it's actually taken 5% casualties already. So given it's on open ground, you know, that was to be expected, which is why we wanted to get these units across the open ground into the village as quickly as possible. But they're still moving forward. And you see that colors change there. So this little 3 icon here, this is actually the combat power. So this you actually change what displays here. You actually click through a bunch of different, All these things mean different things. You actually see down here in the bottom left, you actually click through all these and change them. I use combat supply just because it's an easy way for me to see how strong different units are. So green background means everything's fine. Yellow, as we can see there, means that the unit is retreating. So you actually see up here in the top left, the unit's retreating. And red means basically, I think it's routing or surrendering. So red is very, very bad. Units retreat and stuff, it's don't sort of, if you're new to it, don't worry about that. It just means that they've taken some casualties. They're just going to retreat a little bit to, you know, reform, reorganize, and then they'll proceed back into the attack there. So it's going to retreat back a little bit. They should stop quite soon. There we go. So they've stopped now. So they're in a little bit of cover. They're going to take some time to compose themselves, and then they'll move back in again. So this is quite normal. Units retreat and stuff, and retreat and come back in again all the time. So this one's done the same thing. It's taken a few casualties. It's retreating back again. And but the attack will still proceed. It's going to take a little bit more time. You can see here the attack is finally underway. These units are moving in. You can actually hear now, that's artillery, so I'm not sure, quite sure where that's coming from. Can't see anywhere. It's gonna be, oh, there it is there. So for example, this has been done automatically, which is quite interesting. This isn't on, this is a battalion, this is a, this is the, however you pronounce it, the Nebelwerfers, the rocket launchers, the very famous German rocket launchers. So this one is actually in our fire support mission. Where is it? I think it is, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, maybe it's not. No, it's not. Alright, so that's cool. So this has been done. This is actually done an on-call or a fire support mission on its own. So it's actually attached to the on-map boss, but it's actually not under our direct control. We're actually not sort of directly controlling it. So it's actually decided to, for whatever reason, it's gotten a call probably from some of these HQ units in here. It's actually done a fire support mission on its own. So that's what happens if you leave artillery units attached to different levels of command. They'll actually produce their own fire missions, which is great, I think, which is really good. It's what you want. So what we're actually going to do now, we're actually use some of our, given we're having a bit of trouble in this town, we're actually going to jump in here into our own fire support. We're actually put down some artillery missions on our own. We're going to use here on the B, the bombard, so I'm just going to use the hotkey for that. So we use B for bombard. And we put down a bunch of fire support missions on these units here, probably put 4 on each. So it looks like there's only 2 infantry companies in the town, or there's 1 infantry company and an engineer company. So I'm going to put down a bunch of fire support missions for these, and then we're just going to keep running the game. You should see these fire support missions, artillery missions coming in now. There you go. Huge amount of artillery coming in here. And you actually see that's actually caused this unit to retreat. It's taken some casualties, it's been really suppressed, and it's retreated. So we've actually dislodged that unit from the town, which should make it a lot easier for our units to now get into the town. This one's still surviving here, so we can put down a couple more fire support missions. And it's going to pause it again here. Alright, so this is another thing. Here we go. So you heard that, if you actually click it, you should see there's some fire coming there. That's actually coming from the medium mortar platoon. You actually see the little blue icon, the little blue block there. So that's actually firing onto there. So that's what's happened is one of these units, or maybe the HQ's called in a fire support mission on this unit, and they've created their own fire support mission for their attached medium mortar platoon, and they're supporting their attack. So that's sort of another example of how the AI works. We're getting some allied artillery fire coming in, which is causing our units some problems, which is okay. Getting some more fire coming in. I didn't set that up. See our guys are took some casualties, actually taking a little bit of problems and stuff here, but I know I'm very, very confident we're going to be able to take this village. It's going to take a little bit more time. So you see down here, we've got a couple of units, allied units here and there. What's actually happened now is that we've actually secured the village, and once the village is secured, all of the rest of the units will actually move up and they'll actually set up defensive positions. So the HQ unit will move up, the support units will move up, and they'll set up defensive positions in this area. This attack has come in, we're clearing the village, come across no enemy yet. Looks like we're having some units coming up here, so I have to keep an eye on that. The attack is coming into the village. I'm just going to put down a couple more fire support missions. One there, one there. Clear out this village. I'm not quite sure what's happening here, guys. What's happening? Alright, let's see. Set them to none. They're not resting that I can see. They're all moving, deployed, but they're just not moving. Move, day 1. Yeah, it's all set. What we're going to do, I'm just going to delete these orders and we'll give it another crack. Not quite sure what's happened there. It could be a bug or it could just be something that I've asked them to do. So I'm just going to redo that. Put them on fastest, put them on, oops, on no rest, put them on max aggro. See if that helps. So it's going to take some time now for that order to actually come through. So it's going to take time from that order to get from the 47th Panzer Corps to the battalion, and then for the battalion to issue its own orders. So if you want to actually know the values or how long it's going to take, a bit of an estimate, these two, under the commands tab here, these two amounts here, the unit delay. So the unit delay is how long it takes for this unit to receive an order from its superior. So in this example, it's the 47th Panzer Corps. So it's going to take the 2nd Battalion 25 minutes to receive an order from the 47th Panzer Corps. The force delay is then how long it takes for that order to actually be processed by the HQ, and for the HQ to then distribute its own orders to its subunits. So basically, it's how long it's going to take the entire force, to actually start moving. So it's going to take 40 minutes, basically. It'll take the better part of an hour to actually get this battalion moving. I'm not quite sure what they did in the first place. So starting to move into the town here, you can see our units coming through here. Look, everything's pretty fine, they've come across no problems. We're starting to move into the town here. This one, so you actually see here, they're actually routing, so that's why it's gone into red. So route recovery, they've taken too many losses, they've lost their nerve, their morale has dropped, and they're routing. This engineer platoon or company is still there. They're actually entrenched, see they're entrenched. So actually going to, oops, there we go. Right, so we're going to drop on them a whole bunch of artillery again, try and dislodge them from the town. It may look like a bit of a waste, but I know that it's worth it to get this in, as quickly as possible. So we're starting to get some units coming up through here. I'm a little bit worried about these support units being a bit stuck on their own. So what we're actually going to do, I think what we're going to do, so there's a unit down here, so there's a mortar platoon down here. I'm not really worried about any of these though. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to set up, I'm going to sort of get rid of this position or leave this position. I'm actually going to set up some move points. So I've clicked on the move order up here. I'm going to set up some waypoints. I'm going to set that up actually just at the edge of the forest here. I'm actually put the facing down into the village. So you set the facing, you see this changes the footprint. So set that down there. So they're facing down towards here to meet any units coming towards them. Rest onto just minimum, and I say quickest, so that means they should follow the road up. So the quickest route. And all the other settings are going to be default. I'm going to leave the formation up to the discretion of the HQ, but I'm actually going to click on here, attacks. So this little attacks button here. What this means is that I'm authorizing the battalion here to initiate its own attack. So if it comes across any units on its way, I'm actually giving them discretion if it wants to, if it feels the need to actually initiate its own attacks, on any unit it comes across. So basically I'm doing that because we can't encounter any units up here, I want them to be cleared out. And also once they actually get here, if there's any sort of units in this area, I want them to clear out those units once they get there. So that's the reason I'm doing that. So I'm going to do that. I'm not too worried about this. I think this one will probably be cleared off by the time these guys move out. If not, I'm actually going to just put down a few fire support missions because these guys are exposed. And I reckon they should probably do enough damage that these guys will retreat after this one. So I'm just going to watch here how we go. Hope that sound's not too loud, guys. It's down the lowest is. I don't want to turn it down to 0 because I won't be able to hear when there's combat and stuff. Let's see, we'll see. So these guys are taking some hits here. See what happens. Yeah, so there we go. So they're starting to retreat there. They've taken too much hits there and they're retreating. So these guys are starting to, so the order's starting to come in. So you can actually see they've set up their route. They've set up their orders, but they're actually sub-units don't have their orders yet, so that'll come a little bit later. Cool. So this one's all gone fine. We've come across no problems, no enemy there, which is awesome. Alrighty, so we're actually into the center of town now, but this unit is still there. Damn little engineer unit. So we're going to set up some more fire support missions. I'm going to tick off the avoid friendlies here, just because once you get close to your units, sometimes the artillery units won't fire because they're too close to their friendlies. But I'm actually going to take that off because I want these guys to be out. And there we go. So we're in the village. We've taken a fair few casualties actually. It's a lot more than I actually took last time. I actually played through this scenario. So we'll see if we can actually get them out here. There we go. Finally, they've been dislodged from their position. So they're not entrenched or dug in. And that means now they're dislodged and they're out in the open. We shouldn't have any problem with this town now. You actually see now we've actually secured the objective. That little green ring around the objective marker there. And if we jump into the objective screen here, we actually see hosting unit is now green. So we're actually going to start getting an occupation ticking score there for as long as we hold this objective, which is good. So we know that's done. These 3 infantry companies here, this battalion has done its order over here. I'm actually going to set these. I'm going to leave them, I think, there maybe. These guys are slowly starting to move. Yeah, finally. So not really sure what the hold up was there. That's delayed us quite a bit, which is a bit unfortunate. It didn't happen last time around. I don't think it was anything I did. God knows though. Well, there's nothing wrong with the commander. There's quite a bit of a load though. It's actually, see, they're actually over their capacity, so 8 and 9, which means they've got the extra delay. Interesting. All right, cool. Cool. Alrighty, so we've dislodged them there. We're controlling the town. We've seen some artillery and stuff come in here. I'm a little bit unsure about undecided about whether to actually set up this battalion here across the highway, actually blocking units coming down the highway, or to set them up here in the forest to actually sort of stop any units coming up from the river up here. I think we may just leave them there. May do a bit of a hybrid. We'll set them up sort of here. So we'll set them up here somewhere. I'm actually going to set them up for all-round defense. So this little formation here may seem like a little bit of an overkill. So all-round defense means they got obviously defensive. So these formations have different benefit or different properties based on obviously the type of formation you use. So all-round defense means that you're not weak in any area, but you're not particularly strong in any area either. Whereas if you example, if you use a V formation, I know from looking at the manual, V formation is the strongest formation for frontal attacks, or gets the majority of the fire in the front of the formation or straight out, but it is quite weak on the flanks and the rear as well. It was all-round defense. So I'm going to use all-round defense because I don't quite know where the attacks are going to come from. They could come from up here, or from here, from the side, or even from the rear as well. So we're just going to use that. Put rest on minimum, and everything else is just going to be fine. So it's just a defensive order, so they're going to come in here and set up defensive positions. I think is going to be fine. So that's all gone okay there. Starting to get some problems into here. So some of these support units are now vulnerable because I've left them exposed. I didn't consider the fact that they would bring units up the road, which was a bit silly of me. But I think it's going to be fine because these units are starting to move out now, as you can see. So I think these units are going to be okay, because we should be able to sort these guys out. I think these guys are going to end up moving. I'm not too worried about that. There's no objective here anyway. It's only 1 platoon. They've actually lost 3 of their guns anyway, so 50% of their guns. They had 6, they've only got 3 now. That's all good. And put down 1 fire mission here just before our guys get in there. Still a little bit of damage. Comes in, there we go. So this guy's taking some hits and now they've retreated. So they're in road formation. See that really long, thin box there? That's because they're moving. So now what's going to happen is they're going to shake out into a combat formation, and they'll probably change. You see the ones behind them have actually halted because things have actually changed now. There's some combat happening up in front of them, so things are actually going to change now, and they'll shake out into combat formation. And now they'll probably move ahead, I suspect, and they'll sort of clear out these units. So you see the whole battalion stopped, and they'll change things out. So you can already see there, it's now switched out into a combat formation, which is good. So they'll sort that out, not to worry about that. So awesome. So everything's fine here. These guys are finally in position here. They're just reorganizing, getting all set up. So you can see all these movements points coming around, which is good. So fastest, I'm gonna say quickest. So it's going to change their delay. So I probably should have done that anyway. It's all done. It's done. Cool. So these bridges are being built, I believe. Yeah, constructing bridge. Yep. All right, good. So there'd be a bust if it wasn't happening, but it is. So bridges are being constructed, which is good. So as you see here, the equipment tab is actually reduced. So it's down to 88%. That's because they're actually using their bridge building supplies there, which is awesome. Alrighty, so what are we going to do now? So I'm actually going to do, so as you can see, this is going to be, I'm going to run these episodes quite a bit longer than a normal episode, probably around the hour mark, just because this game, as you can see, is quite involved. Things will speed up a little bit now that I've sort of explained everything. So, sort of the core concepts and all that kind of stuff. So we've actually got this unit over here, this formation, which is the KG von Fellois, oh, I can't pronounce it. The KG von F HQ. So this is a regiment formation. So the 2 blocks, I think that's a regiment, isn't it? I think it is a regiment. No, it's a battalion. So it's a battalion size formation. So the 2 little stripes there. Whereas a regiment should be 3. 1? No, 1. It's 1, isn't it? Let's say 1 there. Where's the 77th regiment? 3. Yep, 3. That's right. And then 1 is a company. Yep, so 1's a company. And then I think it gets down into dots, and once you get down into platoons and squads, so the dots there. All right, and then the X's are divisions and corps and all that kind of stuff. Cool. So I've got a battalion here, which is the KG von F. 946 men. It's got 70 tanks. So I actually see here another thing to explain. These amounts on the left are just for the actual unit selected. So just for the KG von F HQ. The HQ itself, the HQ unit has 74 men and 12 armoured fighting vehicles. So the AFVs, armoured fighting vehicles, which are basically tanks. And then non-AFVs. So non-AFVs are things like half tracks and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, sort of not, and, you know, trucks and things like that. So obviously they're not sort of armoured fighting ones. There's sort of, you know, some scout cars and things like that as well. And then guns are sort of artillery pieces. The amounts on the right are the totals for the force for all units under its command. So for example, for this battalion, it's got 946 men, 70 armoured fighting vehicles, 147 non-AFVs, and 42 tanks. 42 guns, sorry. Then all these units are basically combat and movement values, basically how strong and effective it is against different types of other units. I'm not getting into those. It doesn't really matter at the moment for you guys. So what we're going to do, we're going to move this formation. So it's attached to the Panzer Lehr division, but they're all sitting over here. So we're going to get these guys ready to actually move into position. So we're going to set up a movement order here. So we just clicked on the M. I used the hotkey then, didn't I? Oops, hotkey. So you click on the hotkey and get rid of that. There we go, delete. Cool. All right, so we're going to set up a move order. And we're just going to click on here, just on the village here. Doesn't matter what the facing is or anything like that. We're just going to set up quickest route, and we're just going to leave the speed as normal, which is fine. Leaves no minimum rest, all that kind of stuff. Nothing else really needs doing. So as you can see, these guys are under our direct control of this battalion. So what's going to happen, we're just going to move them there, and then once they're there, we'll just reattach them to the Panzer Lehr division to reduce that command capacity on us. So if we jump into our on-map boss, come into the command tab, you actually see our load now is up to 17. So we've still got, you know, basically half our capacity left, but it has jumped up quite a bit, which is interesting. So we're just going to get these guys to move out to there, and everything else is all pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with how everything is. I might actually move this formation, the KG Gutmann HQ, which is 1,400 men, 89 tanks, 284 non-AFVs, and 42 guns. So they're attached to the 2nd Panzer Division. I'm just going to move these guys down here a little bit, just so they're a little bit closer to the action. Close to the river, move them on to quickest. And you see our command capacity is going to jump up again, so it's gone up to 18 now. Cool, done. Alright, you can see here we've secured the village, all the support units and HQs now moved up. And then they're moving into like defensive positions to secure this area, which is awesome. Just good. Same happening up here. Taking some artillery fire here on the light gun, which is a pain, but that's fine. You see our units moving into actually attack this unit and clear out this area, which is fine, which is good. So you see the 3rd Battalion of 110th Infantry Regiment for the Allies. So there's a battalion in this area, an infantry battalion, which is fine. We're going to clear that out fairly quickly. I'm not too worried about any of that. What I'm actually am going to do, these infantry companies moving towards these support units, I'm just going to hit them with a few artillery. So I'll put one just a little bit in front of them as well. Just looks like they're moving still. So that should hopefully do some damage, maybe force them to retreat and bring them back into the range of these infantry companies, so they don't get any close to our support units. So I suspect this should be enough to make these guys retreat. Yeah, there we go. So then they're retreating, they've taken some casualties, and it's been too much for them. They're now retreating. So these support units should be fine. I reckon they should probably have clear path to move around and to link up with their HQ unit there. So these guys are all in combat formations, moving through, clearing out this area, which is good, so we've cleared that out. This unit's probably still in this area somewhere, but I'm not bothered by that. Everything's fine here, all is good, all moving into there. This attack is coming into here, which is good, so they're finally attacking into the village. So as you can see, they've got no support units. They've set up things a little bit differently than what the other battalions did. So they sort of had their support units in the rear and then their combat units in the front. They've sort of set up a little bit more staggered. So I'm not really quite sure what formation they've gone with. Looks like maybe an echelon formation, sort of all sloped to one side, isn't it? So no sort of units over here, whereas... double check into here. Yeah, so there's no units on the right over here, so they've gone for a big sort of left focused one, so a little bit stronger on the left, which probably actually makes sense because there are more units down here, so that's right, interesting. So that's the way what they've chosen to. So they've got some couple of frontline ones here. Actually, it looks like they've gone with successive lines, actually, to be honest. So there's a formation here, successive lines, so obviously just as the name suggests. So there's two lines in front, the front two combat units. It looks like there's probably a middle one and then maybe a rear one as well. So you actually see roles different here. The HQ assigns different roles to different formations. So yeah, it depends on what to see. So we're taking some fire here. I suspect it's probably from this unit down here. So what we're going to do it. I really enjoy, it's a little bit sadistic. I really enjoy hitting enemy artillery units just because they are artillery is such as it was in real life. Artillery can be a real killer. Can be absolutely brutal. So anytime you come across any enemy artillery units, I really enjoy hitting them so they can't do any damage to you. So another thing I'm actually going to do now, guys, there's filters down here. So there's a bunch of filters. So there's an intel filter here. So currently it's showing all filters. So obviously there's like a fog of war system. So you can only see enemy units that you can actually like directly see. So obviously there's going to be a huge amount more units on the map than we can currently see. But it's currently showing all of them. So I want to just change it down to current, which means that this is the units that we know are exactly there. So this is quite important for artillery missions, because like for example, this one here that we set up on this mortar platoon, it may not even be there anymore. So because we actually don't have a current report on them, so that could be a waste of artillery ammunition. So generally you only want fire support missions on current targets, and you get recent ones there and then all of them there. So generally I just leave it on current and then I'll switch it back to all every now and again, because sometimes you get sort of big lines of enemy units and that can be a good indication of reinforcements coming in or something like that. So leave it on current so we can see what currently is or isn't. So you've had a surrendered or destroyed unit. So the K Company of the 110th Infantry Regiment has been destroyed here. That was one of the units in the village here. They've been destroyed, which is fine. Alrighty, so the attack's gone in smoothly, which has been good. We've taken minor casualties here and there, which has been fine. But it looks like we're going to be able to secure the village fairly easily. Taking some more fire here. So we can put down some more bombard missions there and there. I love artillery. Artillery is brilliant. If you ever get, like we do have, currently we have artillery superiority. I'm not sure if it will for the entirety of the scenario, but whenever you have artillery superiority, it's absolutely wonderful. Which makes an enormous difference. I'm going to hit this artillery unit here. Actually move this one back a bit. Alrighty, you see down here, so I've turned off all that you see here, all these green messages here are just like routine messages, like supplies and all that kind of stuff. They're not interesting. I've just left it on urgent and flash reports. So I saw one come up here. So reinforcement KG 902 HQ has arrived. So we had our first reinforcement unit, so 3,000 men. This is a regiment, so you can see here the 902nd Regiment. 3,000 men, 86 tanks, 550 non-armoured fighting vehicles, and 62 guns. So quite a big formation. It's attached to the Panzer Lehr Division, so that fleshes out the Panzer Lehr Division into a bigger formation, which is good. So what we're going to do, we're going to get these guys, move them down. So as you can see, there's only one road which leads to the bridge. So I want to sort of get our guys stacked up on this road. Given we've got a bit of sort of units here already, don't want to sort of block things up too much. What I'm actually going to do is set these guys just here on the top of this village. I'm going to reduce their frontage. I don't want them to spread out too much. I just want them to be there. Put them on quickest and they should start moving. So reinforcement units don't have any orders delayed straight away for like the first hour. So this briefing thing here, this initial orders delay, I think that applies to reinforcements as well. So for the first hour, I think reinforcements don't have orders delay. Yeah, so 0, so there. So that should increase over the first hour, I suspect. But I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think from experience that makes sense. So these guys are going to start moving out pretty much straight away. You can see the route they've taken, all that kind of stuff, so that's fine. Good, good, good. Alrighty, so KG Gutmann has moved. They've all moved their things. I'm actually going to reattach them to the 2nd Panzer Division because we don't need them anymore, which is awesome. So that should... yeah, it just takes a bit of time, I think, to reattach. Alrighty, cool, cool, cool. So we've had another reinforcement come in. So the 1st Battalion of the 78th Grenadier Regiment. So it's an infantry battalion. So that's actually quite interesting. We actually move them across the river straight away. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to set up move commands and move them straight across the river. They can get wet. And we're going to set them up on the southern side of this village. Just to clear, because I know there's a few units here. So I'm just going to set them up here. Set them up facing... oh, mouse. Set them up this way. I'm just going to move that a little bit. There we go. Over this way. There we go. So they're sort of still sitting on the ridge. So they should be able to see sort of down here, but they'll be able to protect the flank of this village. We can say quickest route, so they should move up the road, and everything else is fine, which is all good. So you can see there. Well, their orders have come in straight away because they've got no orders delay yet, and yeah, so there you go. They're going to start moving out, so they'll be able to cross, which is awesome. So this formation starting to move out, which is good. Still got some attacks and stuff coming in here, so what I'm actually going to do now. Actually, guys, 66 minutes, so it's over an hour already. I'm actually going to end the episode here, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode back, first episode in months. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the game. Let me know your thoughts. If you do find it boring, then there's no real need to let me know in the comments. That's fine. Just don't, move on, watch something else. But if you do enjoy the game, I'll put links to the Panther Games website and where you can download this. I'll put a couple of other links as well. There's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant, sort of a tutorial AAR, so after action report, on the Panther Games forums. It's probably the most detailed and amazing tutorial document I've ever seen in my entire life. It's just absolutely incredible. It runs through a full scenario, one of the core scenarios, and it gives you exact settings for every move that the person makes during the entire scenario. So if you want to learn how to play the game, read that. If you read that and understand it, you'll be fine. You'll probably be a better player than I am. So yeah, so let me know what you think of the game, if you think it's interesting, all that kind of stuff. Next episode, we still have a long way to go, don't we? All the way over to Bastogne. Next episode, we'll probably get our bridges built fairly soon, early into next episode. We'll be able to start moving our armoured formations across the river and start pushing down here. Alright guys, as I mentioned, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hope you enjoy the series and you stick around for it. It should be quite fun. And yeah, hope you all had a wonderful day, and I'll see you all soon.